For a fourth reason I'm looking at that year is just personal guidance. I shared with you guys, and this probably means nothing to anyone but me. But I think we're all getting these things in our life if we're, praying, or if, a lot of us, we get guidances on different things like that. And so I was taking care of my dad a lot. He passed earlier this year. So we studied end time events together, and he lived to see some terrible things that were coming. And I was the one that let him know what happened in Butler. And he didn't even blink. He was just like, yeah. But like whenever I first started really trying to help him toward the end, I had this flash of understanding about 3 years. And I think for a while there, the Lord was trying to guide me into um, a certain pathway of taking care of him that would have lasted for 3 years at the max. I think the Lord can like adjust some of those things like he did with Hezekiah as far as what time that we pass and everything. Like I said, it was a flash of an understanding of 3 years, because I think what he was showing me mostly in that is take care of him. He needs help. And it was only like for my own, because it was so stressful in a lot of ways, for my own, understanding and comfort, and for my own strength, for me to understand that this will not last longer than 3 years, because there were so many times where that helped me so much of this is hard. But I think I started telling him, you're our Methuselah, because we can understand when Methuselah passed, um, his name meant when he dies it will come, and the flood came. And these are like the days of Noah. And I said, when you go, it's going to come. So I was looking at that 3 year window. The maximum would have put us at the end of 26. So I was like, what's coming in 27? But now we might be given more time. It's still here. When he passed, everything's escalated because Trump had just come into office and everything. So it's a lot still here when he passed, but he left us a tremendous legacy. He told us, he always taught us and told us about the times that we're in now and the things that we're seeing in the world right now. That's just a personal life thing for me. I mean, that's not a big, oh, thus saith the Lord 2027 or anything silly, but these are reasons that I'm personally preparing anyway that I am. Like I said, that church that my wicked abuser was at on 1260 days on that halfway point and all, they had been mocking him. This is sad. This is the pitiful, small, insecure, wicked abuser, the stereotype of they have to go to the devil. That's not funny, y'all. They have to go to the devil for approval. Like, please approve me. Please put your stamp of approval on me and make me feel special. They have to. It's their hook and their addiction and their cult that they're in. And yeah. So what I have been finding, what I found when I just at the 1260 days for me, I was like, what's that fool doing? Because I'm not seeing an angel or nothing really extreme. I'm way better. But what's the fool up to is how I figured it out, because he's all blocked. And so I searched his name, and I found a lot of people were over there complaining, like, who is this clown? And why is he celebrating the P-file church? And with the and so that I was finding out details of things like that they were complaining of, like how they had been warning him for a few years now every time he would go over there, of they would be making comments on his public thing and like saying this church that you're looking at is super crooked and they're caught up in crimes and you don't want to be associated with them or supporting them. And so he would be deleting their comments. What I'm trying to say is he had held himself up to be pious, respectable, and above that kind of behavior and above doing things like that. But no, he's over there deleting them because he wants to be associated with them. Something's wrong there. And every time, looking back, I probably said this a lot before here. That was some of the red flags that was in his sermons that people wouldn't necessarily recognize unless something like this happened. Is he was always like name dropping and I met so and so and I shook so and so's hand. And people just really get upset if I don't shake their hand because shaking my hand is so special and important. And I'm just like, who thinks like that? That's goofy and ridiculous. Who cares? Like, like one of the things he had done the very last time I saw him in person was, I guess we're in story time again. Like I've detailed before, he had a problem with women and God and power and spiritual gifts somehow. That triggered the demonic stronghold. There is so much to my story I've never told there, right? A lot of this abuse and violence and anger and against the sheep. In his case, he had done it for so long he could disguise it under a few things like I'm anointed, don't question me. Anything that seems iffy goes right under the rug as long as it's backed up by all the other wonderful, magnificent things. Um, if you don't have the subcontext of what's going on, you wouldn't realize he's aiming that at somebody. A lot of preachers get up and aim sermons at people and get away with it for the same classic reasons. But that's immaturity and the flesh. But anything that was rage and coming at somebody was passion, Pentecostal fire. It was all this. That's one of the errors of that movement. Is sometimes when they really get into like the flesh, it's disguised as spirit. So that's part of what happened there. I'm not from the background of this Pentecostal tradition. I'm coming into some of it, and so I'm trying to study and learn how do things work and what's going on. But I think that kind of looked like skepticism, and you're not supposed to do that. You're just supposed to worship him. So I'm looking like, really? And so that happened, and then the service was dismissed, and there were people standing around talking a lot. It was the last night, and people were kind of saying goodbye to each other and to him. One of my friends was there, and this is so crazy. Story time, y'all. Here I am thinking, oh, that was weird, but maybe that's not what I thought it was. Benefit of the doubt. Come on, surely not. And so one of the leaders of the church came to me and was like, "Hey, do you want to meet up with him or talk to him?" And I'm not sure exactly what context that was, but for any context at all whatsoever, after the insanity that just happened, tripping and flipping and screaming all that and how arrogant you are of things you did, even if he meant that to the congregation in general or anybody else there, that was inappropriate. So I just kind of brushed that off like, no, I'm good. I'm about to leave and thank you. No, no thanks. So that happened. And then I noticed that this guy that was guest speaking, remember, he had made a big deal about shaking people's hand and how important he is and how important it is to shake his hand. So he's going to come through shaking everybody's hand. And goodbye, goodbye. This goes back to the level of immaturity, the level of nothing, foolishness, just arrogance, just haughty, unimaginable haughtiness. It's sad. It's really sad. But maybe this will help someone because every time people do story times of church things, I'm like, thank you. Of this is how this works. It's not just me, and I get nuggets from the whole story. May not help me, but there's a few nuggets that are life saving. So he comes through shaking hands, and I'm like, oh well, he kind of went past me, but what? There's people are close and talking. Maybe it was just a not that big a deal. I didn't care. Absolutely did not hurt my feelings. Did not care because I'm not like that. Here's another thing. Everybody's trying to shake the preacher's hand, and there's a long line. It holds you up from getting to your car. So over the years, my for the past 10 plus years, my overwhelming pattern, and some other people I know, either they followed me or they figured out the same thing, go out the side door. Say hi to the preacher if you see him. And I'm also trying to be polite to his time and respectful because he don't have to. Why does he have to shake my hand? Am I not saved if I don't do that? So anyway, I go out the side door, and so get to my car quicker. Get out of the parking lot. Get out of people's way. I'm probably parked behind somebody, and I don't have to stand in line. There's no reason. And the only reason I ever do that is if I need to tell them something in person that's urgent. that I need to say that I didn't get to. So it saves my time, it saves his time. We love the Lord. We know why we're there. It's cool. I'm always not shaking the preacher's hand anyway. It's not a big deal. So him not shaking my hand is not a big deal, whatever, at all. So I'm standing at the same pew pretty much I was sitting at. I think I went up a few pews by now, and I'm talking to one of my friends that came. I'm between these pews and he's between those pews, and the preacher comes back. By now he's done shook everybody's hand but mine, and I'm like, uh-huh. I bet you he was trying to make a I figured it up pretty quick. He was trying to make a scene that he skipped me. 'Cause now he's coming back to me. Either because he's going to let me know he skipped me because I obviously don't care and I'm not chasing him down, or it's just the level of how mad he was, and I'm going to tell you why later too. That I'm just sharing this because this is how I knew he wanted me to know that thing about who do you think you are and what have you ever done was about me, and I needed to know this in case this isn't childish enough for y'all. So he comes back, and he's gonna make a deal of now he's gonna shake my hand. So it was so silly that I tried to joke it off, and I shook his hand and I said, and these are all things I had to renounce later. This is how witchcraft is. It can get so serious that liking, being in the presence, sitting under the preaching, shaking the hand, paying tithes, I renounced all of it. Zero agreement in any way, shape, or form with him and his witchcraft in Jesus' name. So he comes and he shakes my hand, and I said, "Oh, now you're going to come shake my hand." I made some kind of comment like, "Oh, it's important to shake hands because that's everything." But I didn't mean it, or I hope it didn't come across as like sarcastic or mocking him. I just meant it as kind of a tongue in cheek of, "Oh, I'm glad you did because that's important," or whatever, to kind of fish him out of like, really. And so after that, since I just kind of laughed about it and turned around and talked to my friend, so like I said, I'm here, my friend's there. Here's the aisle. He goes across the aisle to the pew across from me and stands there. And like I say, people are really close. So he found somebody to talk to right there. So they talked for a little while. And the entire time, since I'm still don't care and it's obvious, I think my whole attitude is, well, whatever. It's realistic. Don't care. Therefore, attack mode, because you better care and you better cry and it better affect you. So anyway, he's over here talking to some fella, and but the whole time he's doing that, he's doing this whole body um communication with his head and his body to me, like aggression and arrogance. The body language is a continuation of, what have you ever done? Who on earth do you think you are? So he wanted me to get that message. This is how angry he was. He was literally that angry. By now, you can tell, guys, you probably met these people. They're talking to something or someone else. They're not talking to you. They don't have an issue with you. They have an issue with something. That's that demonic stronghold. Because at that point, the arrogance that I witnessed in him was what I call unbelievable. It was just, who do you think you are? What have you ever done? And I'm over there just chatting along, whatever, laughing, carrying on. So I never recognized the snakiness at the level that I should. But I was like, oh, okay, he wants me to know this is something. And he wants me to know that that message was about you primarily. Well, I noticed people were like, oh, goodbye, Pastor, goodbye, sir. And they're giving him all this attention of, you're wonderful and honored and high and lifted up. And we want to make sure to say goodbye to you. So I'm like, you know what, honey? When me and my friend walk up out of here, I ain't gonna say nothing to him. Really? And why would I? So I walked out of there and completely said not a word. And so we were standing outside still visiting with friends, and I didn't expect to see this either, but this was God trying to be like, stay away from this person. He had evil intentions. Everybody there was under the spell, but somebody else there was in danger. Everybody there was in danger. So, but I do have this thing where if somebody has a certain level of honesty and a you know a good reputation, and they're saying that something's wrong, I want to know more information. I don't just dismiss it because somebody else says to dismiss it. This is this respecter of person and tradition and not trusting your common sense that I don't understand. But I've come to understand that a lot of people are super different than me, and a lot of people like me. They're just different. They really don't have the ability, apparently. Anyway, so I'm looking toward the church and we're talking and saying goodbye. Apparently the theme of the night was rage, because it was literally like looking at Jekyll and Hyde. He was slam the church door open, jump outside like a monster, like a cartoon character, slam the door of the church closed, rage, 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 rage over to the other door, slam that door open, jump inside and slam the door shut. Like I said, there was a whole lot going with this guy, a stronghold for a long time. And at the time, I'm in a deep conversation with someone, but I saw that, and I'm very calculating in my mind and my thinking. You guys know, analytical. That went into a category somewhere of this was a continuation of the same. That's the same as the sermon, as the not the handshake, as the looking at me like you ain't right, and then turning your back on me, and now you're gonna rage, 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 rage. And it may be other people too, but he made a point. He made a point to show me that it was me. This is how I'm telling people. We had issues and differences that I saw for a long time before I said he attacked me. So I knew what was going on a lot and didn't say nothing. By the way, this happened years and years before I was attacked, before I said he did anything. I didn't just come out accusing this guy, even whenever it was ridiculous. So after that, that's why I got curious, because he was already a friend on one of my profiles. I got curious of why would he do that, because this is the flip mirror reverse image Jekyll and Hyde of what we've always known him as. So I saw him enough on social media after that to be like, oh, he's reacting to my post. He still does. He didn't get better. He didn't get into a better mood, and that's when the blocking started. Until 2019, when I opened everybody up to say, here it comes. And he got super jealous because I had just had a book and everything. Anyway, I also came on there to promote my book and whatever. So I was saying that to say he makes a big deal of the handshakes and the associations and the power circles, and this is an economy where you only have winners and losers. So if he's not the ultimate top dog crushing people, he's the ultimate filthy loser at the bottom. The zero sum game theory and the whole. So that's why it was so bad that it had him running around the country after conferences of people to shake hands with, so he could feel like somebody at all, to the point it gets so bad when you have that kind of idolatry that it has you bowing down at these altars of just horror. So it literally, God was showing how bad it was, that he's literally over there with child harmers. God was also saying, this is a sign of the third seal, saying things like, the leaderships in the churches are being judged. It has reached a cup of iniquity. It is the worst of the worst at the top of the church. People were making comments. People were making comments at this point, like I said when I did the search, about what he's doing, how long he had done it, how he had been warned, how he chased people away physically when they tried to come warn him, threatening them, and how these people that he went chasing after for their approval was making fun of him. And they were making fun of like how he wore his hairpiece, whatever, who cares. But they were making fun of him, and he's still lapping at their feet, because in his twisted mind, they're the stuff. And that's the world for you, and that's idolatry. Is P. Diddy is the stuff. The white parties are what you want to go to. And that's what he's into. That's what that spirit does. It's just ridiculous. That's how bad it is. There's no excuse for it. And at that point, too, this is another situation where at the halfway point, 1260 days, I was given a lot more information than I even realized. By him being busted over to church like that, I was being given the information of, It's the worst of the worst. This is more of the seasonal sign of the 9/11 and the church leadership and the third seal and the weighing these things in the balances of how wicked it really is. And he is what attacked you with him was an antichrist spirit that is trying to run these churches, and it is the worst of the worst. And what happened with me was I was basically like a satanic human sacrifice done by these wicked spirits to hurt me in such a great way so that these antichrist spirits get more power to stay hidden. It is exactly what they do in the secret groups with what they do with the children. They hurt them the worst of the worst to get more power. And I already suspected he had gotten a lot of wicked power from doing this to me by joining up with Team Satan, whatever happened in the spirit there, to because that's what it took. This was not of God at all. It's just that's a picture of how bad it is idolatry. It is wickedness in high places. It's wickedness at the top of the church. That's what's being exposed these days. This is the season we're in. It's probably why America's going down. This is what our churches have come to. Even though I will tell you, I have felt the church being refined through this season, the real body, and the churches feel better than ever through this. We're all together through the suffering and the drawing close to God and depending on Him. So I'm not downing churches. I never was. I think that was another one of his false accusations. And when these attacks started, like I could feel where it was coming from, and it was not me. And they knocked them doors down till they could hurt me. And I could tell y'all stories and stories of that. I have the diligent, careful, months long, first-hand witness. This is not me, and it did not come from me. I fought it. It was the vicious dog, the same one. So anyway, what's really interesting is over these years of this happening, since it first happened, I could tell when he was in the area because it was always worse. And it wasn't just the attack on my body worse, it was my situations, the people I was around. Like the very first time, two people backed into my car the week he was here, and one person ran me off the road until one of them poor fellas at my church said, "Girl, anoint your car with oil," even because they was trying to take me out. I mean, I shouldn't be here. And it progressively was better. But even like if I wasn't paying any attention to him or the areas that he visits when he's here, historically these past 4 or 5 years, if I felt like something's wrong, something's trying to hit me just as hard as it did a year ago, and I hadn't felt like that in a while, I could look on social media and he was in town. And that happened recently. So that's a sad update I have for you guys. He has not repented. He's bad as ever. And I know that because I'm doing very well. Thank you, Jesus. But at night when my whole body gets still and submissive and quiet, I would have the Bible playing in the background and busy. It wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't that serious. But I was in the back of my mind. I would be going through. Did this happen? That happened. The other happened. I would pray. And I would be like, something's going on in my atmosphere that's a little bit worse than usual. But then about 3 or 4 nights of that, I said, let me check. Because I've not been looking around my area. Sure enough, the clown had been in town that very time that it was the worst. So that's one independent confirmation that he's the problem. I have problems when the witch filled with demons comes into the territory. That's when it attacks me harder. And he's the problem, not me. I'm fine whenever it's just me here. I'm not fine when the witch comes to town filled with the devil. He is unrepentant, filled with evil, very filled with evil up in your church house. So that's a recent thing that happened. I think that's all my story times for right now, but I wanted to point that out of that's the world. That's idolatry. His future and his end like this is very horrible. It is something I would not wish on anyone. It's so terrible, guys. Come on. So I think people started realizing though, and one of the things is it matches the season, like what he does and did, and over time. And two, part of the information I was given at the halfway point of him being over there, I wanted to know if what these people said was real. So I looked on that church website and saw a few minutes of him preaching. And in his face, he looked like a murderer. He looked different to me now. He looks like a murderer. I can see it. And he also looks like there was a certain kind of resolution to him. I made a choice, I sold out, and I'm not going back. I'm setting it in my mind. I know I did something wicked, but honey, I'm setting it in my mind. She's wrong and I'm right. I didn't get my worship, so it don't matter what nobody thinks. And I suspect, just because I've had these kind of innuendos before and they were always true, these ideas, I suspect the people around him might not can pick up on it, but I'm suspecting that unless he's on his goody boy behavior of the cultivated charisma that they can have that's so convincing, that the air that he has around people now is more like it can come across as super professional and promoted, but the air is really something more like very resolute, very determined. I'm on a bad pathway, but honey, I'm never gonna admit that. In my mind, in my reprobate state, I have made up my mind who's right and who's wrong. And it's kind of like he's now, there's no humility seeking out, I wonder what the truth is. There's no reasonable thinking. Now it's boss mode. And how dare, if anything would come up, if somebody came against him or said the truth, they'll be confused by him, or they will follow his leadership of, she's 100% this and I'm 100% that. Period. Thus saith the Lord. Because God said it. If I say it, God said it. Because I am God. And they'll be like, ooh, thus saith the Lord from the authority. We better believe him or there's fearfulness here. Yeah. That's the kind of communication that's coming from him now, is complete authority, zero tolerance for anything else. He is the authority. And it may look like leadership and conviction. In reality, it's a resolution of, I've made up my mind. This is how I'm going to think about it because I was dissed. Because my idolatry wasn't recognized properly. Anyway, there's a lot. There's a little bit more to that story. But there's a lot of times whenever I'm in a situation where either I do recognize I'm being given a lot of information here, or I find out later, oh, that meant a whole lot more than I even realized. That was God really helping me. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. But another thing I was given at that point was like the situation in the church. That's part of why this is all happening. How bad it really is. That was the other thing. I'm still in such innocent mode. I think even back at that was a year or so ago that happened, year and a half ago, that I'm thinking, oh, he just accidentally slipped his way backward in that on top of some foolishness of, I got to shake hands. And it's got to be about worship fests and all these atmospheres of power and control and status that he's drunkenly addicted to. But I think another thing I was shown there is, at some level he knows it's wrong and he don't care in case that helps anybody who knows him and still has to do anything with him. Is I think that was the Lord kind of showing me. He knows how wrong that was. He knows it was bad wrong. And he don't care no more. We're not at the level of, I'm just a silly child of arrested development, of spoiled rotten, and I can't help myself. I love being in their atmosphere because they give me a certain degree of attention, and I feel like it's a flattery of someone at that status level is giving me attention. Somehow he deems Child Harmer Church as a certain status level that's flattery to be giving him attention. Whatever. Okay. People are different. But I think the Lord was saying, tap, 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 tap. It's worse. It's worse than that. He knows it's wrong, and he's decided that it's more important to have some kind of attention fest than to be right. And there's kind of like a hard arrogance, harder than ever, because there was before. But there's some kind of arrogance level now of, I'm going to be with this bad church. And I'm going to have the might and the authority of Almighty God to put my stamp of approval on the Child Harmer Church. And nobody's going to say nothing about it. And that may be like a level of deception that he's honestly in, of I don't realize how bad what he was raised in was. Of he literally thinks that if you build it in the spirit with clout and connections and miracle working power and tongues that can join Lucifer and harm the servants of God, this Antichrist power, that he thinks that I can get away with stuff and I should. And that means I get to have my justice and stomp on people's faces because I got mad because they didn't worship me. Enough on that. The reason I dwell on details like that is it heals people who's been through it. It gives them insight. It gives them the information of their situation too. It's the study. This is not necessarily the study of the halfway point update and the world and the mess, as much as it's the study that I originally came back on my channel for. You guys can imagine the playlist that I could build forever on these kind of abusers. There was a hard set determination to put his stamp on approval of a known wrong that he believes he has the authority. He believes that he has the righteousness over that. So that is the level of deceived and wicked that you're dealing with. And I wasn't putting that together till later. It was like God was tapping my shoulder of none of this is accidental. And the interesting part there was he was not doing that against me. This is what he has become. That's why when he comes in the area, I can feel evil. I think one of the reasons too, I was starting to realize when I got that revelation, I think the Lord was trying to show me he's mad at me. He has issues, like I said from the beginning, issues with God, women, power, and it was kind of like even though he was willing to work with God to a degree or thought he was close to God to a degree, when it come to that area, he was going to punch God in the face because he's mad that God lets people come to church and not worship him and things like that. Yeah. And the kind of spiritual power that they have from violently shedding innocent blood, for lack of better description. Like I say, whenever I hear a news story of what happens to some of these people, I'm like, yeah, that is exactly the evil that hit me. Thank you. That's exactly it. When they do it sacrificially in these rituals, it's to get the kind of power to do miracles, to do miraculous things, to stay hidden, and to be worshipped. Those kind of things. So I think that's how he has his power, to stay under the radar, to stay having his money coming in, and to be listened to. Or even if he don't go around saying, I'm going to get her and I'm going to get her. Because there are certain levels of evil that deliberately look for a harvest so they can, that's a very real thing. They can come in and claim you and take all of your whatever was good was supposed to come to you. If they can put you into a horrible shape, they apparently are promised by evil. And I think the evil forces try their best to give them that. They give them what should have come to you. So I rebuke that in Jesus' name too. And if you guys are praying, just say a prayer for me if you're a praying person. This will be reversed. God will get glory, and it already has been greatly. And like I said, I'm just interrupting my whole while I'm looking at 2027 to give you guys a few story times here. It does tie into what's going on here, like spiritually in the spirit, these spiritual things. The first time this happened, there's been a few, like in my personal life, a few coincidences here with the 2010 cycle and this cycle. To me, obviously, there was one in the 2010 cycle. It happened in 2011. Early 2011, though. It would have been like March, April, not September 11, where church leadership jumped on me with all 4 feet. And that threw me into a loop that was also supposed to be life-ending for several reasons. But it was coming from church leadership or someone that called themselves church leadership. And I think the only, there's so much details to that. And I did give some of that story on my last channel, on my other channel. But the pattern I saw in that is I was attacked by church leadership both times. God always showed up and said, I'm here and I'm not that. But there was no very obvious rebuking of them, shutting them down, punishing them, and showing everyone else in the situation that there was, but it wasn't like at this level of what of the violence that came to me, right? And it took a long time and people eventually saw the truth. But I've come to believe that both times it happened, it was an Antichrist spirit and the spirit that's against God, you know, abusing the people in his church. Matthew 5 comes to mind really strong now with those verses of blessed are the persecuted. But so the first time it was church leadership, and there was a lot of church leadership that were involved that was maybe more innocent and more not knowing what to think or do, got caught up, enjoyed gossip. That part wasn't innocent. They was enjoying some really wild gossip rumors about me. I didn't learn about till years later. It's sad. And another thing is like they was telling some wild stories about me, and I had only been there like a month and a half. And the only clue I got was I tried to friend people on Facebook, and no, and people wouldn't really friend me, you know. And till finally one of the main guys who was the did the main smearing and the main harassing, the main gaslighting. That's when everybody kind of had their first wake up to this narcissistic abuse community awareness thing about that same time. That was peace taken. A lot of our peace was taken by these situations. So, cornered me in the back of the church and called me names. He was wanting me to act as crazy as he had been telling everybody I was, so he could be like, "Look what she did." There's no telling. He is so crazy. Plus, he was putting himself in front of the church and pretending to be a preacher, and that got shut down. A few years later, I told people what he did, and that finally got completely shut down. They wouldn't let him back to do the foolishness he was doing. But I'm like, what was he gonna do? Because thankfully, I had the presence of mind and the joy of the Lord. I was filled with like, whoo, like Holy Ghost fire, passion, joy of the Lord so much in that church as part of why they were like, mm-mm. So I was so happy that whenever he got me in the corner, I was happy even after he had done some other stuff to me. Whatever, you know? So when he gets me in the corner, "You're crazy, you're crazy." I was like, "I know, right?" Just to joke with him, like, yeah. Like, no, who cares? The only thing that concerned me is you're acting like this in church while you just pretended like you were a preacher and you're about to preach again tonight. Weird. This is bad because you're not joking. I wasn't concerned because you're calling me crazy, because I learned one of the main things they hate is you calling them crazy, right? He was textbook, but certain aspects of what he did, how he lied, it was the lie. He lied so much about me to people that I was trying to be friends with. That bothered me because I was immature in that at the time. So I went and did internet searches later, years later, because it wouldn't get out of my head. And that's when I first came across the concept and the word sociopath. And this was years and years ago, over 10 years ago. The very first person I ran into, this is God telling me these patterns. The one I found was a woman doing blogs online. I haven't been able to find her since. She was doing blogs online of her sociopath situation was her husband, her ex-husband, who was horribly abusive in private, yet he was a tear-jerking, crying for Jesus minister of a church that worked miracles like around the country, and would come home and beat her and everything. So she had some stories to tell that really helped me. Like, yeah. Anyway, the same guy that had attacked me so much, did a whole bunch of other crazy stuff. He tried to ruin my life. And I remember vividly times where I realized the goal of this situation is to put me somewhere like psych ward, morgue, or jail, because the situation wasn't being handled that you could see. But what's really crazy is these days, when I look back on that's such victory to me, because none of that happened. The opposite happened. By the way, that first situation was so evil and bad and horrible. This Antichrist spirit situation, and there was others that kind of joined with him against me, mostly out of jealousy. But I didn't see that at the time. Had no clue, like, what's going on? Yeah, this is ridiculous. Assignment that was sent after me in that season, and it was backed up by spiritual things and spiritual pressures I didn't understand, and spiritual warfare, like feelings and then thoughts that would just, it was interesting. There's a lot of lessons in that one. But those were the goals, and thank God it didn't work. What happened instead was that's how I started. That was the reason I had my book in my channel, was overcoming that. And in the meantime, it had this other witch guy upset with me because I was glowing up or whatever. So I had my book in my channel this whole time, helping others. Like I want to help people now about church leadership does not mean God's against you when church leadership turns on you. That lie. But my book and my channel was to coach people and help them through every kind of these narcissistic abusers. The mind tricks and traps and games, the hooks, the catches. It's not just you. Games you're accidentally playing on yourself because you've never seen this before, known about it. On and on. And it seemed to be super helpful for what people that were there. And as time went on, and I got past that, and that seemed to also be kind of like a 7-year cycle because the abuse happened in 2011, and somehow by 2018 is when things finally broke. This wasn't just a situation that bothered me mentally and emotionally. This may help someone. These are strongholds or some kind of assignments that come onto you, like whenever you're possibly to be used by God, that are trying to take you out. And it looks so silly, like something like that would never take me out. What really helped me was when I started realizing that this is something coming over to take authority over my whole life. And so I started, in the name of Jesus, you have no right to pray things onto me, to put things on me, and you have no right to pray anything about me in my direction. And that broke a lot, but it was till 2018 till it was completely broken. That was like a 7-year deal, and I noticed that back then. So whatever that was, if that was anything, just to let you guys know how long it can happen and why, it's helped me to hear people teaching about how whenever God's really using you and you have a lot of use, the devil will come up in people to come against you, to hurt you so bad, to try to take you completely out, period. If they can't do that, they want to ruin your reputation so you won't be taken seriously and you'll be limited as much as possible and things like that. But anyway, that situation was so bad. The person involved, they always have these tales, right? The original person who came against me so strong, they eventually started putting demonic pictures, is all they would put, all over their social media. Traditionally, like throughout my life, I don't know if it's always been related to, these kind of cycles, 10-year whatever cycles. I haven't even looked at it that close. But if somebody came against me that hard, there was something bad wrong happened later. But the person who came against me, they were putting demons everywhere, and then they started tattooing entire parts of their body filled with demons. And then I learned later on that they're trying to take themselves out. I do not wish that upon that person. But that's what I'm trying to say, is it's these level of darkness. It's everywhere, really. So I mean, that wasn't about me necessarily, but it's these level of darkness. You'll know them by their fruits. I'm not making it up that when these people attack me at this level, they are like that. It's usually, you'll know them by their fruits somehow or other. So I feel like these were examples of antichrist that were either leadership or trying to be, that tried to completely take me out in these seasons, and how that happened not only one time. Like the other antichrist person, guys, it was just about as bad as what's happened to me with this weird wig guy lately. They were both pretty bad in what they tried to do to me. In case that helps anyone, that's what's out there these days. In 2018, whenever I was making legit breakthrough like that, is when I took the pen name of Deborah, because I needed a name to be on the internet anyway, because I felt like there was some kind of promotion or an authority that I had over some of the things that were being sent to me that were just not fair, where I could now bind it and it would stop. And it's not that I'm trying to be bigger or make myself bigger. Maybe it was God's plan to plant people in the church that way so we can pray for others with authority, because we fought those wars, or it's needed to keep the sheep safe. And it's given to people who are proven that they want to keep people safe. So I think for this number 4, I was saying my own personal reasons, my own personal life situations, things that have come to me that no one else would understand or even believe, that would not mean very much to them, but just like my day-to-day things that I do, the steps I take, the understandings that I have, is where that comes from. And also, since Dad passed, it's like just the sky is like more radiant of like heaven. And I'm not sure exactly what that is or what all that is, but it's just like heaven. I think a lot of it has to do with is the Lord saying the world is that different, that everything is okay, Dad is at peace, to not fear anything that's coming, because heaven is promised. And it may be just the level of prayer and fasting too at this point. I don't know. I thank God, and I thank everyone who's prayed for me. That's wonderful, and you will have your reward. And I believe in praying for each other in these times, that's for sure. And so I just hope that I can honor my dad, what he did for us, his sacrifices, and the heritages that he passed down to us, like in sharing these spiritual truths and, other work and things that I do. So, for my number 5 reason why I'm looking at the year 2027, these are other general predictors. There's a lot of them, but they're just like more general, maybe less provable in some ways. These are why I believe there's major shifts toward the cashless. That's what I think 2027 is going to be. It could possibly be the fake alien thing. It could be a culmination in the war, which would possibly lead to the fake alien saviors. If that war gets that big because of how our weapons are these days, it's going to be possibly the time of the major shift to the cashless.